Hello everyone and welcome to Metagame Mastery, where it's not just about what the card does, but how it impacts the game. Guilds of Ravnica pre-release is this weekend, and so we're taking a look at the limited archetypes, including Selesnya Convoke. If you enjoy this content, click that subscribe button so you get access to all our latest videos, and if you're looking to pre-order your Guilds of Ravnica booster box, check out the Amazon affiliate link in the description below. Without further ado, big time! Go! Time. Let's go. So first we're going to take a look at the comments because that's what you're going to see the most of in your sealed and draft pools. Of course, the Selesnya specific mechanic in this set is Convoke, coming back again for the fourth time. If you're not familiar with it, your creatures can help you cast Convoke spells. Each creature you tap while casting a spell pays for one colorless mana or one mana of that creature's color. For example, Rose Mane Centaur is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, green and a white for a 4/4 Centaur soldier with vigilance. 5 mana for a 4/4 with a keyword is pretty decent as it is and limited. But the fact that if you hit your 1-drop and then your 2-drop, this can be your turn 3 play, that's redonk in this format. Siege Worm is also back. He's 7 CMC, 5 colorless, green for a 5/5 worm with Convoke and Trample. So the real power of this card is dropping it on turn 4. Getting a 5/5 with a keyword like Trample on the board on turn 4 is just sick. Ledev Guardian is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a white for a 2/4 Human Knight with Convoke. This one's nothing special, just amazing art on a general filler card. Loxodon Restorer is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, white for a 3/4 Elephant Cleric with Convoke. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life. Now, you can theoretically drop this on turn 4 and then it's an okay play, but even then it's only just okay. Pax Favor is 3 CMC, 2 colors, and a green for an instant with Convoke. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. I love this combat trick because it's something you could do while all your mana is tapped down and surprise your opponent. Pause for Reflection is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a green for an instant with Convoke. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. So it's a fog effect that, once again, even if you're tapped down, you can still cast this spell. That's never not relevant. Centaur Peacemaker is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, 1 green, and 1 white for a 3/3 Centaur Cleric. When it enters the battlefield, each player gains 4 life. Now, I don't like group hug effects. I don't like helping my opponent, and there's no guarantee that I'll ever be able to overwhelm them enough to get rid of that 4 life that I've given them as a cushion. So just getting a 3/3 body on curve isn't good enough. I don't like this card. Healer's Hawk is 1 white mana for a 1/1 bird with flying and lifelink. I like this one a lot. He is a lava axe early, can attack in, but he's also something you could drop on turn 1 and use as mana ramp for all your Convoke spells thereafter. Hunted Witness is 1 white mana for a 1/1 human, and when he dies, you create a 1/1 soldier token with lifelink. This guy's great. You drop him first turn, just like the last card we talked about. He helps you ramp into your Convoke spells, but you also get something when he dies, when you're hit with a board wipe, or even if you have to chump block, he has that resilience so that you can maintain that mana presence, but at the same time, you can gain some life. And that's not entirely inconsequential because there, as you'll see later in the video, there are cards that benefit from you gaining life as well. Luminous Bonds is getting yet another reprint. It's 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature cannot attack or block. So it's a slightly more expensive pacifism, but if you've been playing the last couple limited metas, then you know that this is still really solid removal in this format. Prey Upon is 1 green mana for a sorcery. Target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. The idea with this one is for you to cheat something big into play with Convoke, and then use that advantage to make this totally one-sided removal. Righteous Blow is 1 white mana for an instant. It deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Being able to shock a creature in combat is surprisingly effective in limited. This is a good card for you to pick up. Sumala Woodshaper is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, a green and a white for a 2/1 Elf Druid. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So this is a way for you to dig out your bombs in your deck. Playing a 2/1 for 4 doesn't feel good. Honestly, most games I would run something that's more of a threat in and of itself and doesn't have the opportunity to miss on those top 4 cards. Sworn Companions is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a white for a sorcery. Create 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. Once again, just populating your board, getting the lifelink on the board, and ramping out big spells on turns 4 and 5. Take Heart is 1 white mana for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn, and you gain 1 life for each attacking creature you control. So obviously, this rewards you for being aggressive, but at the same time, it's a solid combat trick on the defense as well as the offense. 1 mana for +2/+2 can swing just about any combat in your favor, and then gaining life on the turns that you're attacking can be rewarded with other life gain synergies. Vernati Shieldmate is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a hybrid Selesnya for a 2/2 human soldier with vigilance. So this is a bear with upside. The hidden tech with the vigilance is it allows you to attack and block, but still be tapped down for your Convoke cards later on. So it plays especially well in this build. Wary Okampi is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a green for a 3/2 antelope with vigilance. Typically, I don't like 3/2s for 3 in limited. This does play well with your other Convoke cards, though. And for that reason alone, I'm willing to consider it in this build and this build exclusively. Pitiless Gorgon is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, and 2 hybrid Golgari for a 2/2 Gorgon with Death Touch. Okay, so you can cast this for 1 colorless, green, and you get a 2/2 with Death Touch that hopefully you'll be able to use to trade up later on. Either way, it's just a nice body that you can add to your deck, plays really well with Prey Upon. Crawl Foragers is 5 CMC, 4 colorless, and a green for a 4/4 insect scout with undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 1 life for each creature in your graveyard. So getting a 4/4 with upside for 5 mana isn't amazing per se, but it's playable in limited. And at the same time, if you have life gain synergies in your deck, this can reward you just for playing Magic. Vigor Spore Worm is 6 CMC, 5 colorless, and a green for a 6/4 worm with undergrowth. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gains vigilance and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. It cannot be blocked by more than 1 creature. So a 6/4 for 6 is nothing all that special. It's still solid. It's a sizable body. Its enter the battlefield effect, while you're not looking specifically to populate your graveyard, the reality of playing Magic, especially in a creature-heavy deck like this one, is eventually you will have creatures in your graveyard. So you're still likely going to get a lot of upside off of this card. And next, let's take a look at the uncommons. World Soul Colossus is X, green, and a white for a 0/0 elemental with Convoke. He enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on him. I renamed this card the Court of Talling because that's what it feels like. It just rewards you for going wide, dumping a ton of mana into it to have a really big creature on the board. Arboretum Elemental is 9 CMC, 7 colorless, green for a 7/5 elemental with Convoke and Hexproof. Hexproof is an extremely powerful keyword, and you can get this out into play on turn 5 if you manage to hit your 1, 2, 3, and 4 drops. This would be a very powerful turn 5 play. Conclave Cavalier is 4 mana, 2 green, 2 white for a 4/4 Centaur Knight with Vigilance. And when it dies, create 2/2 green-white Elf Knight creature tokens with Vigilance. So this is all upside. You're paying 4 mana for a 4/4 with a keyword that, if it dies, you can put 4 power and toughness on the board across 2 bodies, also having keywords. This has resilience, this is on curve, and the Vigilance plays really well with your Convoke theme. Overall, really solid card. Flight of the Equinox is 8 CMC, 7 colorless, and a white for a 4/5 human knight with Convoke, and it also has flying. So you could potentially play this thing on turn 5. Getting a 4/5 with flying on turn 5 isn't super special, but it's also not the worst thing that I've ever seen. You might even potentially be able to get this out on turn 4 if you've managed to generate extra tokens beforehand. In that case, this is potentially a really good card. Conclave Tribunal is 4 CMC, 3 colorless, and a white for an enchantment with Convoke. And when it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. Unconditional exile removal is great. There is at least one card in this set that grants indestructibility. This bypasses that, and being able to cast this and still have mana held up for other creatures and whatnot in a turn is even better. Just icing on the cake. Sprouting Renewal is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a green for a sorcery with Convoke. Choose one. You create a 2/2 green and white Elf Knight creature token with Vigilance, or destroy target artifact or enchantment. Either way, this is a good card for you. You can cast this on turn 2, assuming you hit your 1-drop, get a 2/2 with upside on the board that will help you ramp into your other Convoke cards, but if for whatever reason you're stuck against an enchantment or an artifact, you can just use the other mode to get rid of it immediately. Either way, this is a card that you can main deck in Limited. Ledev Champion is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, a green and white for a 2/2 Elf Knight. Whenever he attacks, you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. He gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature tapped this way. You could pay 3 colorless, a green and white to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So this guy's great. You drop him on turn 3. He attacks as 5/5 on turn 4. That's solid. Conclave Guildmage is 2 CMC, a green and a white for a 2/2 Elf Cleric. You can pay a green and tap it. Creatures you control gain trample until end of turn. Or you could pay 5 colorless and a white to create a 2/2 green and white Elf Knight creature token with Vigilance. Okay, don't scoff at that second ability. Mana dumps in Limited are extremely powerful, and one thing that a lot of these cards you'll see, they're big creatures, but they don't have built-in trample. This is a way for you to give them all trample every single turn for a very reasonable cost. Flower and Flourish. Flower is one hybrid Selesnya for a sorcery. Search your library for a basic forest or plains card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Flourish is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, a green and a white for a sorcery. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until end of turn. This is really solid in this deck. It's the only deck I would run this in. But you get to fix your mana early, make sure that you have the mana you need in order to play your spells. And then late game, it helps you push through massive amounts of damage with your go wide strategy. Overall, just a really solid card for this build. Join Shields is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, green and white for an instant. Untap all creatures you control. They have hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Okay, when you first look at this, you think, okay, it's a poor man's heroic intervention. And that's a super solid card, mind you. This is going to protect your creatures from removal, obviously, but it's also an amazing combat trick. Think about it. The board's really congested, you swing in, force your opponent to make some tough decisions, trade for some creatures, and then you're like, surprise! All my stuff survives, your stuff still dies, and I get to untap all my creatures so you can't hit me on the crackback. Might of the Masses is being reprinted here as an uncommon. It's 1 green mana for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each creature you control. This is the ultimate go wide strategy in this format. This combat trick is absolutely ridiculous in this deck. Absolutely a high draft pick. Affectionate Indrik is 6 CMC, 5 colorless, and a green for a 4/4 beast. When it enters the battlefield, you may have it fight target creature you don't control. So this comes down a little bit late game, but it is removal on a body in green, and that's really valuable. This is a solid card. District Guide is 3 CMC, 2 colorless, and a green for a 2/2 Elf Scout. When it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card or a geek card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, allowing you to make sure that you can continue ramping out creatures, and you can tap this down as a way to ramp out creatures with Convoke. Gird for Battle is 1 white mana for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So bolster 2, right? This card is actually really good because you're in a deck where you're going wide and the size of your creatures is your advantage. This gives you a permanent bonus and rewards you for having multiple creatures on the board. For only 1 white mana, this is a solid choice. Hasdul Marshal is 1 white mana for a 1/1 human soldier. Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, you create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So that gets ridiculous very quickly, allowing you to populate the board, get lots of life gain triggers, and more creatures you could tap down to convoke stuff into play early. Inspiring Unicorn is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, white for a 2/2 unicorn. Whenever it attacks, creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So this is always a 3/3 when it attacks. It's not good on defense, but as long as you're continuing to push the tempo, you're going to get value out of this. And on top of that, you get to pump up all your other creatures. So the wider your board is, the bigger your board state, the more value you get off of this card. Sunhome Stalwart is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a white for a 2/2 human soldier with first strike and mentor. So I know you're looking at this going, wait, that's a Boros card. It's actually a really good bear with upside, getting you a 2/2 with first strike. Considering all the 3/2s there are in this format, that's exceptionally good. And you're getting value off of mentoring your 1/1 white soldier tokens, your other 1-drops that you've populated the board with. There's so much cards that this interacts with in this build. It's definitely worth picking up. Crawl Harpooner is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a green for a 3/2 insect warrior with reach. It also has undergrowth, and when it enters the battlefield, choose up to 1 target creature with flying that you don't control. It gets +X+O until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Then you may have it fight target creature, or fight that creature. So this is solid. I mean, getting a 3/2 for 2 with upside is good value on its own. With undergrowth, you are going to still be populating your graveyard just by playing a creature heavy deck and magic, because eventually creatures do die. So early game, you're getting ahead of tempo. Late game, this is potential removal for some big threats. You only need 3 creatures in your graveyard for this to be able to trade with even the biggest, scariest flyers in the format. Now let's take a look at the rares. You're not going to see as many of these in limited, but they're going to be more bomby cards as well. Amara, Soul of the Accord, is 2 CMC, a green and a white for a 2/2 legendary elf cleric. When she becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. So this card rewards you for convoking things into play by creating more creatures to convoke more stuff into play. And of course, you're populating your board so that when you get your anthems out, when you do combat tricks, you're just going to be able to push even more damage. Overall, amazing value on this card. Assure and Assemble. Assure is 2 hybrid Selesnya for an instant. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. That creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Great combat trick, ensuring that your creature survives the fight that it's in or dodges removal. Assemble is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, a green and a white for an instant. Create 3 2/2 green and white Elf Knight creature tokens with vigilance. Getting 6 power and toughness on the board across 3 bodies for 6 mana with a relevant keyword is very good. The vigilance allows it to play very well with Convoke, as well as just being 3 creatures off of 1 card. Knight of Autumn is 3 CMC, 1 colorless, green and white for a 2/1 Dryad Knight. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on Knight of Autumn, destroy target artifact or enchantment, or gain 4 life. So no matter what, this is the right creature for the job. This is an amazing 3-drop, allowing it to be a Reclamation Sage, a 4/3 for 3, or gaining you life so that you can stave off an aggro deck. Either way, you're getting something great out of this card every time you play it. Venerated Loxodon is 5 CMC, 4 colorless, and a white for a 4/4 Elephant Cleric with Convoke. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that convoked it. This card's just straight up amazing. You could drop this on turn 3 and effectively get 6 power and toughness on the board. Or you can drop this later in the game and get 9 power and toughness on the board simply by convoking it into play. It gives you flexibility and rewards you for doing what you want to do anyways. Camaraderie is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, green and a white for a sorcery. You gain X life and draw X cards, where X is the number of creatures you control. Creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This is an absolute game-ending bomb in this build. Beast Whisperer is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, green for a 2/3 Elf Druid. Whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card. Now, casting a 2/3 for 4 doesn't feel great. But the idea is you're going to be casting so many creature spells in this deck that the card advantage is going to more than make up for that initial loss of tempo. That said, be careful because this is only when you cast creature spells, so tokens will not trigger this. Bounty of Might is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, green green for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. You do that effect 3 times. So this is a way for you to either spread 3 giant growths across the board, or get +9/+9 for a really massive trample effect, or get +6, +6, and then a +3/+3 somewhere else. Either way you choose to do it, this is going to be a huge play. Bounty Agent is 2 CMC, 1 colorless, and a white for a 2/2 human soldier with vigilance. You can tap her and sack her to destroy target legendary permanent that's an artifact, creature, or enchantment. So this is going to be a commander all-star, but it's actually really good in this build too, because you're paying 2 mana for a bear with upside with a keyword that interacts really well with your strategy. Vigilance, of course, plays really well with Convoke. And then on top of all that, on the off chance that your opponent does drop one of the guild leaders, you could just instantly nix it right off the board. Dawn of Hope is 2 CMC, a colorless and a white for an enchantment. When you gain life, you may pay 2 colorless mana. If you do, draw a card. You can also pay 3 colorless and a white to create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Okay, so this is a really solid card in this build. You've seen over the course of the video that this guild gains a lot of life over the course of the game. And this is a way for you to not only get card advantage in the process, but you can also, on an empty board, use this as a mana dump to not only get creatures out there for you to convoke things into play, but get those lifelink triggers, allowing you to draw more cards. Pelt Collector is 1 green mana for a 1/1 elf warrior. Whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, if that creature's power is greater than Pelt Collector's, put a +1/+1 counter on him. As long as he has 3 or more +1/+1 counters, he has trample. This thing's an amazing value card, especially in a creature heavy deck like this. Every time you see this, snatch it up. Light of the Legion is 6 CMC, 4 colorless, white for a 5/5 angel with flying and mentor. When it dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each white creature you control. This thing's spectacular. Getting a 5/5 flyer for 6 is always good, but then if you get a chance to attack with it, you're just going to throw a +1/+1 counter on something else, and you're going to wind up having paid 6 mana for a 6/6 fly. And it has flying. And then on top of all that, if anything does happen to it, if your opponent does manage to get rid of it, that's fine. You're just going to spread that love across the board. This plays really well in Selesnya. Hatchery Spider is 7 CMC, 5 colorless, green for a 5/7 spider with reach. It also has undergrowth, and when you cast this spell, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. You may put a green permanent card with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this thing's a beastie as it is. Being a 5/7, it's able to very effectively block any flyer in the format. But at the same time, you get the additional value of being able to dig through your deck. And while you're not specifically looking to populate your graveyard, in a creature-heavy deck like this, you're naturally going to do so just by playing Magic. So either way, you're getting extreme value out of this absolute bomb card. Next up, we have the Mythics. These are the cards you're going to see the least, but when you do see them, are going to wind up having the most impact on the board. Tristani Discordant is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, green and a white for a 1/4 legendary dryad. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, and when she enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1 white soldier tokens with lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, each player gains control of all creatures they own. So just on its own, you're paying 5 mana for 5 power, 7 toughness across 3 bodies. The 3 bodies play very well with Convoke. You get lifelink triggers, and if you have other creatures on the board, which you should in this strategy, you get even more value off of the Anthem. This card is an absolute bomb. It's going to be amazing in your deck. March of the Multitudes is X green white white for an instant with Convoke. Create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens with lifelink. So this is the ultimate payoff for this strategy, allowing you to just dump a massive amount of bodies on the board at instant speed. Divine Visitation is 5 CMC, 3 colorless, white white for an enchantment. If one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. Dang, can you imagine that with the March of the Multitudes? This thing is ridiculous. This is going to see EDH play. This is probably going to see standard play. This is a powerhouse card that's going to interact very well with your entire deck. If you see this, this is an automatic windmill slam. Nullhide Feryx is 4 CMC, 2 colorless, green green for a 6/6 beast with hexproof. You can't cast non-creature spells, but any player can pay 2 colorless mana to make it lose all abilities until end of turn. And if a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, put it onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your graveyard. So there's a lot to chew on there, but the simple fact of the matter is, in Limited, paying 4 mana for a 6/6 that usually has hexproof is really good. And the downside is very manageable since you're going to be playing mostly creature spells anyways. This is a great card. Now when you're playing Guilds of Ravnica, there's going to be lockets at common. There's going to be gate cards in every single booster pack. There's even going to be shocklands at rare, allowing for a lot of mana fixing to be out there. Don't be afraid to splash a third, maybe even a fourth color. And I've gone ahead and picked out some cards that will play particularly well with this strategy. Integrity and Intervention. Integrity is 1 hybrid Boros, so you can cast this for 1 white mana if need be. For an instant, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Just a fine, serviceable combat trick, but if you can splash some red in, you can cast Intervention. For 2 colorless, a red and a white, for you get an instant that deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. Lightning Helix is welcome removal in this deck. Response and Resurgence. Response is 2 hybrid Boros, so you can theoretically cast this for just 2 white mana. For an instant, it deals 5 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. That's really good removal in this format. And then Resurgence, if you can get some red on the board, you can pay 3 colorless, a red and a white for a sorcery. Creatures you control gain first strike and vigilance until end of turn. After this main phase, there's an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. Dang. That would get absolutely sick with your giant Convoke creatures. Status and Statue. Status is 1 hybrid Golgari, so you could pay just 1 green mana to cast it. For an instant, target creature gets +1/+1 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. Great combat trick. Way for you to get removal off of even your 1/1 soldier tokens. And then Statue is a great reward for if you can get a little bit of black mana on the board. It's 2 colorless, a black and a green for an instant destroy target artifact, creature, and enchantment. Unconditional removal is always welcome in this format. Well, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this content, click that subscribe button so you get access to all our latest videos. And if you're looking to pick up a Guilds of Ravnica booster box, check out our Amazon affiliate link in the description below. This has been Metagame Mastery. Peace!